Developments in Delaware County where a police shooting and fire paralyzed an entire neighborhood.
The investigation in East Lansdowne will enter a new phase today. Now the crews will be able to get into this home to search for bodies and for more evidence. It all started yesterday afternoon on Lewis Avenue. 2 officers were shot by a suspect who retreated into the home. That home then burst into blazing flames minutes later. A neighbor was recording the scene from the window as the gunman continued to fire off rounds.
That witness who spoke to Action News then ducks for cover and returns to the window to record the flames. Up to 8 people who lived in the burning home remain unaccounted for. Crews are waiting until daybreak to conduct a search since the fire rekindled overnight.
The wounded officers were dragged to safety by Upper Darby police. Their identities have not yet been released, but we do know that they're in stable condition and they're expected to be fine.
We have team coverage this morning. Corey Davis is at Penn Presbyterian Medical Center with the recovering officers. We begin with Catherine Scott, live at the scene in East Lansdowne.
Crews will be back here later this morning, guys, to continue to look through this debris. They weren't able to do that yet. It just wasn't safe, but at daybreak, they will. The district attorney says he fears there may have been multiple people inside, and this morning, 6 to 8 members of the family were still unaccounted for, and there were children who lived in the home. But the fire was smoldering, and the DA said no one would be able to search the site until this morning. Let's go to video from yesterday afternoon. You could see the fire at the 3-story home on Lewis Avenue in East Lansdowne. Officers initially called here for a report of an 11-year-old shot. At this point, it's not clear if a child was actually shot, but as soon as officers arrived around 3:45, someone started firing on them. 2 officers were both shot one time, and the suspect retreated inside the home. The district attorney said about 15 minutes later, a person inside started a fire. Even after the blaze began, shots were still being fired at first responders, so they couldn't try to put out the flames. The entire block was evacuated. The fire burned for over an hour until crews deemed it was safe enough to start to extinguish. Due to the damage, though, crews could still not search the home, and there were 6 to 8 people unaccounted for from the family who lives there. The district attorney spoke of the heroism of police, including the Upper Darby officers who ran in with ballistic shields and helped the 2 injured officers to safety. Chopper video showed one officer being carried away from the scene and being put into an ambulance.
I just can't thank these officers and this team enough for the heroism displayed every single day by our police officers throughout the county, but particularly today. I can't thank Upper Darby police officers enough for what they did to drag these 2 gentlemen away from the gunfire, or we might be having a whole different conversation tonight about what happened.
And investigators don't know who or how many were in the house or who that shooter was. They hope to have more answers once daylight comes and they can bring this excavation equipment in and start to look through the debris. We're live in East Lansdowne. Catherine Scott, Channel 6 Action News.
Thank you, Catherine. And now let's switch live to Action News reporter Corey Davis. And Corey, you have more on those 2 injured police officers. And we're also hearing more from the panicked neighbors from the first time who were watching from the windows as this all unfolded. Just feet from their doorsteps, some of them trapped in there for hours before this thing cleared up.
Yeah, Tim, good morning. Those officers here being treated at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. And as for those neighbors who were watching from their windows, yeah, they heard the gunshots. They saw a lot of the SWAT team activity. So you'll see that video again of that neighbor ducking, and then you will hear from him after he shot that video.
It's very scary. It was very scary. My whole house was surrounded by police officers. Everybody had their guns drawn, long rifles, and the gunshots.
Neighbor Derek Richardson shot this cell phone video of the chaotic scene out there as officers helped an injured officer and called for medics while they were under fire. Chopper video shows one of the 2 injured officers being dragged away after responding to that initial call of an 11-year-old shot in a home out there on Lewis Avenue in East Lansdowne around 3:30 yesterday afternoon. Police were immediately met by gunfire when they arrived. 2 officers were struck, one from Lansdowne Police Department and the other from East Lansdowne. Upper Darby police grabbed ballistic shields and dragged one of the officers to safety. So we do know that one officer was shot in the leg and the other was shot in the arm. Both officers were rushed here to Penn Presbyterian Hospital where they suffered those injuries that were not life-threatening. We're also being told that those officers are potentially going to be released sometime today, so we'll definitely stay on top of that. For now, reporting live here in University City, Corey Davis, Channel 6 Action News.
All right, thank you, Corey. And of course, we'll continue to follow the latest developments in this case, including the status of those officers and their recoveries. We'll have it on air and online. You can always go to 6abc.com for the latest updates as investigators return to that scene this morning.